"My daddy's in heaven, can you help us get home?" The little boy told the lonely CEO at the airport was full of noise, but the man sitting near gate 47 felt completely alone. People hurried past him with rolling bags, children laughed, phones rang, and announcements echoed from the ceiling. Still the CEO sat quietly, his hands folded, his eyes fixed on the large glass window that showed planes resting like silent giants outside. He had everything most people dreamed of: money, power, respect. But at that moment none of it mattered. His life felt empty, like a long hallway with no doors left to open. He had just finished another business trip. Meetings, deals, handshakes, promises. All of it blurred together. He could not remember the last time someone had spoken to him without wanting something. His phone buzzed on the seat beside him, but he did not pick it up. It was probably another message about work. Work was all he had left. As he leaned back, a small voice broke through the noise around him. "Excuse me, sir." Standing in front of him was a little boy, no more than 6 or 7 years old. The child was small, with tired eyes and messy hair. He held a worn backpack tightly against his chest, as if it were the most important thing he owned. The CEO was surprised. Children rarely spoke to him, especially not like this. He looked around, expecting an adult to rush over and pull the boy away, but no one came. "Yes," the CEO said, his voice calm but distant. The boy swallowed hard, clearly nervous. "My daddy's in heaven," he said softly. "Can you help us get home?" He had heard many things in his life: requests, demands, excuses, but never something so honest, so simple. Before he could answer, a woman hurried toward them. She looked exhausted. Her face showed worry and embarrassment at the same time. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, reaching for the boy's shoulder. "I told him not to bother anyone. He wasn't bothering me. We've just had a long day." "What happened?" he asked, not sure why he cared but unable to stop himself. The woman took a deep breath. "We were traveling to see my sister. It was supposed to be simple, but our first flight was late and we missed the second one. I tried talking to the staff, but everything costs money and her voice broke. "I don't have enough. Daddy always fixed things," he whispered. The CEO felt a tightness in his chest. He looked at the boy more closely now. There was sadness there, but also strength. The child was trying to be brave, not just for himself, but for his mother too. "When did your father pass?" the CEO asked gently. The mother hesitated, then answered, "8 months ago. An accident." One day he realized there was no one left waiting. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said quietly. "Thank you," the woman replied. Silence settled between them, but it did not feel uncomfortable. The airport announcement called for another boarding group, reminding everyone that the world kept moving, even when some people were stuck. The boy suddenly reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is my drawing," he said proudly, holding it up. The CEO leaned closer. It was a simple picture: 3 stick figures holding hands under a big sun. One figure had wings. "That's Daddy," the boy explained, pointing. "He's in heaven, but he's still with us." The boy smiled for the first time. The mother watched the interaction, her eyes filling with quiet tears. She wiped them away quickly, not wanting to make a scene. "I didn't mean for him to ask you like that," she said. He sees good in people." "How far is home?" he asked. "2 states away," she replied. "We were almost there." "People say I am. I don't even know what to do next," she admitted. "I just want to get my son home." "Really?" The CEO realized that this night, this airport, this small request might be more important than any meeting he had ever attended. And without knowing it yet, all 3 of their lives were about to change. The CEO stood in line at the airline service desk, listening to the low hum of tired voices around him. People complained about delays, missed connections, and long waits. Normally, he would have ignored all of it. Tonight, every sound felt sharper, more real. He kept glancing back at the woman and her son sitting near the gate. The boy's feet swung back and forth as he waited, trusting that this stranger would return. When it was finally his turn, the CEO spoke calmly with the airline staff. He explained the situation without drama, without using his name or position. He simply said there was a mother and child who had lost their connection and needed help getting home. The staff member typed quickly, shaking her head at first, explaining policies and fees. The CEO listened patiently. Then he nodded and agreed to cover the costs without hesitation. As the tickets were printed, he felt a strange mix of relief and responsibility. This was easy for him financially, but he knew for the woman and her son, it meant everything. He took the papers and thanked the staff before walking back. The boy noticed him first. His eyes lit up and he jumped off the chair. "Mom, he's back." Did it work?" she asked softly. "Yes," the CEO said. "You'll be flying out early tomorrow morning, direct flight." The action was sudden and warm. The CEO froze at first, then slowly placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Thank you," the boy said into his coat. "Daddy says thank you too." Fewer people walked past now and the noise softened. The woman introduced herself and her son. She spoke more openly now, as if a heavy door inside her had been unlocked. She told him about her husband, how he worked long hours but always made time for his family, how he told stories at bedtime and believed small moments mattered more than big dreams. After he passed, everything felt harder. Even simple tasks felt like mountains. "I try to stay strong for him," she said, nodding toward her son. "Some days are better than others." "Mommy cries when she thinks I'm asleep," he said honestly. The woman smiled sadly. "And you pretend not to notice." Places they wanted to visit someday. The boy asked the CEO what he did for work. "I run a company," the CEO said simply. "Do you have kids?" the boy asked. The CEO paused. "No," he said, "I don't." Later, the woman noticed the time. "We should rest," she said. "Tomorrow will be long." "This is just help." They shared breakfast together, laughing over spilled juice and small jokes. It felt normal. It felt right. At the gate, when it was time to board, the woman turned to him once more. "You didn't just help us get home," she said. "You reminded me that kindness still exists." "I'll remember that." And deep inside, he knew this was not the end of their story. After watching the mother and her son disappear through the gate, the CEO remained seated for a long time. People walked past him, rolling their bags, talking on phones, laughing, arguing, living their lives. He stayed still, as if moving might break something fragile inside him. For years, he had trained himself not to feel too much. Feelings made decisions slow. Feelings made things complicated. But now, no matter how hard he tried, he could not turn them off. He finally stood and walked toward his own gate. His flight was still delayed. Normally, this would have annoyed him. He would have called his assistant, rearranged meetings, complained about wasted time. Instead, he sat by the window and watched the planes outside. He kept thinking about the boy's words. "Everyone needs someone." The sentence echoed in his mind again and again. When he boarded his flight hours later, he chose a window seat. The cabin lights were soft and most passengers were quiet. As the plane lifted into the air, he closed his eyes, but sleep did not come. His thoughts drifted backward, pulling memories he had buried deep. He remembered his own childhood, a small house, a dinner table where everyone sat together, a father who came home tired but still smiled, a mother who listened. Back then, he believed success meant having enough to protect the people you loved. Somewhere along the way, success turned into something else. Long hours, bigger goals, less time, fewer phone calls. Until one day, there was no one left to call. He opened his eyes and looked around the cabin. A few rows ahead, a young child slept on their parent's shoulder. The sight made his chest ache. He wondered what kind of man he might have been if he had chosen differently. When he landed, the city greeted him with tall buildings and flashing lights. His driver waited as usual, opening the door to a black car. The ride to his apartment was silent. The streets felt colder than usual. When he entered his place, the lights turned on automatically, revealing clean surfaces and perfect order. It looked impressive. It felt empty. He removed his coat and stood in the middle of the room, unsure what to do next. Normally, he would check emails, review reports, plan the next move. Instead, he sat down on the couch and stared at the wall. For the first time, he allowed himself to admit the truth. He was lonely, deeply lonely. That night, he dreamed of an airport. In the dream, he kept walking past people who asked for help. Each time, he turned away. Then he saw the boy again, standing alone, holding his backpack. This time, when the boy spoke, no sound came out. The CEO woke up suddenly, his heart racing. The next morning, he went to work as usual. Meetings filled his schedule, but he struggled to focus. Voices blurred together. Charts and numbers felt meaningless. During a break, he found himself opening his phone and searching for flights between cities he normally never looked up. He stopped, confused by his own actions, and locked the screen. Days passed, but the memory of the mother and child did not fade. If anything, it grew stronger. He began noticing things he once ignored. A tired employee working late, a security guard eating alone, a cleaning woman quietly doing her job while everyone rushed past. Small moments he had overlooked before now stood out clearly. One evening he stayed late at the office. The building was mostly empty. As he walked toward the elevator, he heard quiet crying. He followed the sound and found a young intern sitting on the stairs, her head in her hands. In the past, he might have walked by. This time he stopped. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She looked up startled, then quickly wiped her face. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." When she thanked him, he felt that same warmth he had felt at the airport. That night, he realized something important. Helping the boy and his mother was not a one-time moment. It had opened a door inside him, a door he could no longer pretend was closed. He began making small changes. He left work earlier some days. He asked people how they were doing and waited for real answers. He started supporting causes he once only signed off on without thought. None of it made headlines. None of it was about recognition. It was quiet, personal. Still, one question stayed with him. What happened to the mother and her son? Did they make it home safely? Was the boy sleeping in his own bed now? He told himself not to get attached, but the thought refused to leave. One afternoon, while reviewing paperwork, he noticed a small drawing tucked inside his briefcase. He did not remember putting it there. It was the boy's drawing, 3 figures under a sun, one with wings. He traced the lines with his finger, feeling a strange mix of sadness and comfort. He realized then that his life had been built like a tower, tall but narrow, strong but lonely. The boy and his mother had not climbed that tower. They had simply stood beside it and reminded him what he had forgotten. Late that evening, he stood by his apartment window, looking down at the city lights. For the first time in years, he did not feel above it all. He felt part of it, connected. He took a deep breath and made a decision. He did not know exactly where it would lead, but he knew he could not go back to who he was before that night at the airport. Something inside him had changed, and there was no turning away from it. Somewhere, a little boy believed his father watched from the sky. Somewhere, a mother believed kindness could still appear when least expected. And here he was, a man who had everything, finally understanding that what he needed most could not be bought. The story was still unfolding. And for the first time, the CEO was ready to be part of it, not as a spectator, but as someone willing to care, to stay, and to choose people over silence. The decision the CEO made that night did not change everything at once, but it changed the direction of his life. The next morning, he woke earlier than usual, not because of an alarm, but because his mind was already busy. Thoughts moved through him quietly, not with stress, but with purpose. For the first time in years, he did not feel the need to rush. At work, people noticed small differences. He greeted staff by name. He asked questions and waited for answers. When meetings ended, he stayed behind, listening instead of leaving first. Some thought it was temporary. Others felt something sincere had shifted. He did not explain himself. He simply acted differently. One afternoon, he received a message from his assistant about a charity request. In the past, he would have approved it quickly without reading. This time, he asked for details. He learned the group helped families who were stranded during travel emergencies. The memory of the airport came rushing back. Without hesitation, he asked to meet the organizers. During the meeting, he listened carefully as they spoke about parents missing flights, children sleeping in terminals, people afraid and far from home. He saw the boy's face in every story. He agreed to support them, not just with money but with involvement. He wanted to understand how it worked. As weeks passed, he began visiting places he once ignored: community centers, support offices, quiet rooms where people waited for help. He did not announce who he was. He dressed simply. He listened more than he spoke. One evening, while volunteering at a travel assistance desk, he helped an older woman rebook her ticket. She thanked him with a smile that reminded him of the boy's mother. It was then he understood that kindness did not need a big moment. It lived in small actions, repeated again and again. Still, the mother and child stayed in his thoughts. He wondered if they were doing well. He remembered how the boy held his backpack tightly, how he spoke with honesty and hope. One night he searched his emails and notes, hoping he had written down a name. He had not. The memory frustrated him, but it also taught him something. True help did not expect return. Months went by, seasons changed. The city moved forward, but he no longer felt lost inside it. He began visiting a small park near his apartment, sitting on a bench during lunch breaks. He watched families pass by. Children played, parents laughed. Sometimes the sight made him smile. Sometimes it made his chest ache, but he stayed. He did not turn away. One Saturday morning, while sitting in that park, he noticed a familiar laugh. It was light and joyful. He turned his head slowly, unsure if he was imagining it. Then he saw them. The boy was running across the grass, chasing pigeons. He looked taller, stronger. His backpack was gone, replaced by a small jacket. Behind him, the mother walked carefully, smiling as she called his name. For a moment, the CEO could not move. His heart raced. He was afraid to blink, afraid they would disappear like a memory. Then the boy stopped, looked around, and saw him. His eyes widened. "It's you," the boy shouted. He ran toward the CEO without hesitation. The mother froze, confused at first, then followed quickly. "You," the boy said again, breathless. "You helped us." "I'm glad you're okay," he said. "We are," the mother replied, "because of you." The boy was doing well in school. They were learning to move forward, one day at a time. "You didn't just help us that night," she said. "You gave us hope when we needed it most." When the sun began to set, the boy climbed onto the bench and looked at the CEO seriously. "Daddy says thank you again," he said. The CEO nodded, unable to speak for a moment. As they prepared to leave, the mother hesitated. "We'd like to stay in touch," she said carefully, "if you're okay with that." As they walked away, the boy turned back and waved. The CEO waved too, his heart full. That night, sitting alone in his apartment, the silence felt different. It no longer felt empty. It felt calm. He realized that sometimes life gives second chances quietly, without warning. He looked at the boy's drawing again, now framed on his desk. He smiled. The path ahead was still uncertain, but he was no longer walking it alone. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The days after meeting the mother and her son again felt different for the CEO. It was as if a quiet light had been turned on inside him, one that did not blind him or rush him, but guided him gently. He went back to his routine, but the routine no longer controlled him. His life finally felt like it had space for people, not just work. They stayed in touch, just as they promised. Sometimes it was a short message, sometimes a phone call. The boy liked sending voice notes, telling small stories about school, about things he learned, about how he was being brave like Daddy. Every time the CEO heard the child's voice, he felt grounded. It reminded him why slowing down mattered. The mother never asked for anything. She never hinted at needing help. That made the CEO respect her even more. Over time, he learned she was strong in quiet ways. She worked hard, cared deeply, and never let sadness turn into bitterness. She was learning to rebuild her life piece by piece, and she did it with honesty. One weekend, they invited the CEO to visit their town. He hesitated at first. He was used to being careful, used to keeping distance. But something inside him told him this was not a risk. It was a step forward. When he arrived, the town was small and calm, nothing like the city he lived in. The boy ran out of the house when he saw him, waving both arms, almost tripping over his own feet. The mother stood behind him, smiling warmly. "Welcome," she said. Inside the house, everything was simple, clean, modest, full of life. There were drawings on the walls, school books on the table, and laughter in the air. The CEO realized something important in that moment. This place felt more like home than his large apartment ever had. They spent the day together. They cooked, talked, laughed. The boy showed him his favorite toy and his favorite place to sit and think. He spoke openly about his father, not with pain but with love. "He still helps us," the boy said, "just in a different way. For staying in our lives." The CEO changed too. He adjusted his work life. He delegated more. He made room for weekends, for calls, for visits. His company did not fall apart. In fact, it grew stronger. People respected him more, not because of his title, but because of how he treated others. One evening, while sitting together, the boy asked a question that surprised them both. "Can people choose their family?" he asked. The CEO looked at the mother, then back at the boy. "Sometimes," he said gently, "yes." He spoke honestly, openly, without promises he could not keep. The mother listened, her eyes filled with emotion. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. "I don't want saving," she said. "I want sharing." The mother grew stronger. The CEO grew softer in the best way. They became a family, not because of a grand moment, but because of many small ones. One night, as they sat together looking at the sky, the boy pointed upward. "Daddy's watching," he said. The CEO smiled and whispered, "Thank you."